My senior project is titled Streets, Boundaries, and Other Places, Stories of Asylum. It's a collection of short stories that weave together themes of refugee lives and resettlement in my hometown of Charlottesville, Virginia. Really, my life has crossed paths with refugees since I was 12, when I made a good friend who had just moved in down the street. His family rented a house from the Greek Orthodox Church, and he's from Bosnia with a Serbian father and Croatian mother. The experiences he told me about moving, about home and war, really had an impact on me and who I am today. At public schools and later on the soccer field, I met many more refugee youth and their families, making long-lasting friendships. Here at COA, I started looking at aspects of forced migration in a more academic way through independent studies, classes, and an internship that focused on intercultural concerns. I was fortunate to be able to carry out a Catherine Davis Project for Peace in 2007, when I interviewed and documented and photographed many refugees resettled in Charlottesville. And excerpts and photos from this project are in the Blum Gallery right now and will be up till Sunday. But more recently, through a Humanity in Action Fellowship, I had the opportunity to discuss human rights and the refugee experience with other American international peers, as well as attend asylum hearings in New York. So for my senior project, I wanted to bring together many of these experiences, ideas, and dreams. I had ideas in my head for further exploring the refugee experience, and I wanted to experiment with voice. I have 9 short stories, and they are all set in Charlottesville, or Seville in the stories. And I wanted them to also be about sense of place, so the streets, edges, and the community are just as important as the characters in the stories. Thinking about it now, I'm realizing more and more that I wanted to write the stories because of what I don't know. I believe I have good friendships because I did not probe, patronize, or insist that they tell me more about war, death, and so on. Instead, we had childhood and adolescence and shared all of that together. And this is why the short story really allowed me to explore a sort of hidden world that I don't think I would have been able to enter through ethnographic or journalistic means. And I'd like to read you a few quick excerpts. This is from Timberwood Lane, which is written in first person from the voice of Mirna, who was a Croatian refugee from Split, who fled first to Berlin and then Seville with her husband Dragan. Me and Dragan actually called Seville home from the first day we arrived. It felt right to us even though we didn't have an apartment or house to call our own. In fact, the evening we flew in, no one was waiting at the small airport to pick us up. But Dragan had written down a phone number for Jane, who would be our caseworker. We had no money, but a kind black man who was propped up on his taxi door reading a newspaper saw we were fish out of water. He walked over and asked if we needed to make a call. We looked confused, and I said, "Have we no ride? But must to call this telephone on paper." He had pointed to us. He had pointed to a phone booth and handed us 75 cents. I still remember the little fireflies lighting up all around me as I tried to reach Jane. The sun was setting, blue-gray mountains were fading beyond the tiny runway, and these little bright yellow dots blinked and flashed. It was a summer, and in a way it reminded me of the islands off Dubrovnik, where we used to visit family. There, too, these bugs and crickets formed the sights and noise as ocean breezes mellowed us all. After no answer, I walked back to the white metal bench where Dragan was guarding our 2 suitcases. He said, "This is home." He, too, was happy to see the fireflies all around us, flirting, dancing, getting ready to mate. And a little later in the story, before arriving and settling in Seville, we had fled to Berlin during the Troubles. There, neighbors would always give us strange looks and ask us, "Oh, war." They always pronounced this word like it was a rock band name. "Please tell us about that war." "You poor thing," or even worse, they'd ask, "When are you going back?" I never felt accepted, and it was impossible for us to find real work. We never had correct status, but we tried to keep busy. I cleaned houses and babysat occasionally, and me and Dragan enrolled in cheap Volkshochschulen classes to learn German, classes full of Turkish people. And at this school, I also registered in a ceramics course. Working with clay was my only way to keep the mind off my home, my family, that war. What did I make? I made many bowls, a plate, 2 cups, and vases. Crackle glazes were always my favorite. The fragmented, cracking qualities fascinated me, and I did not realize until later that the pots I made looked like my Yugoslavia splintering into little countries. And a little bit further on in the story, later, after the family has moved out of a small apartment and bought a home out in the outskirts of Seville, because this is set in pre-economic and mortgage crisis times when they could get good, easy credit. Um, that spring became summer, but fireflies were not coming to our house. First summer nights for me in Seaville with no blinking and flashing yellow dots. I kept telling Dragan, something is wrong, no fireflies. Don't worry, they're just late this year, Dragan said. But why not? We must ask neighbors, I remember saying frantically. Those next few days I watched for neighbors out gardening or mowing the lawn to ask them about the little bugs. Hello, Mrs. Brown? I have a funny question. Have you seen these bugs? I think they're called fireflies. I'd ask, or more intensely, good morning, Mr. Schumacher. Why no fireflies out here at night? But no one could answer, and they just looked at me like I was some strange foreigner asking even stranger questions. I was so upset. I had poked holes in jars, had been awaiting this moment all winter and spring, wanting to run around in our new backyard with Yagoda, capturing and making our little lanterns. But now I know it's the Chemlon van, coming all the time with those guys that look like Ghostbusters. They have their chemical tanks strapped on their backs with hoses in their hands, spraying all over lawns up and down Timberwood Lane, killing off any little insect. We kill off all kinds of grub and insect, ma'am, one of the men had told me after I asked them what they were doing. Thank you. And now I'm getting excited and preparing to study the refugee experience in different contexts. On June 17th, I leave for a year-long Watson Fellowship to map and document refugee sense of place. Thanks.